There comes a moment in every woman's life when silence feels heavier than words. When she sits alone, realizing that what she once had was real, not perfect, but pure. It's not about who left or who stayed. It's about what her soul endures when she loses someone who saw her worth before she truly did. This is not the story of heartbreak. It's the story of awakening. Because when a woman loses a good man, something inside her begins to die. But something far greater is born. At first, she breaks quietly. Not with loud cries or desperate pleas, but with the kind of silence that feels heavier than any scream. The world keeps moving around her. People talk, laugh, live. But inside her, everything stands still. The light that once filled her chest flickers, and for the first time, she feels what it truly means to be empty. It's not anger that consumes her, it's absence. The absence of being understood, the absence of being seen. She wakes up every morning, expecting to feel normal again, but the truth is, she no longer remembers what normal feels like. There's a particular kind of ache that doesn't show on the face. It hides in the pauses, in the way she stares at her reflection, trying to recognize the woman looking back. She goes about her day pretending to be fine, giving half smiles to a world that has no idea she's unraveling inside. She still shows up, still fulfills her duties, still plays the role of strong. But when the day ends and the lights go out, she feels the weight of every unspoken word pressing against her chest. That's when it truly hits her, not the loss itself, but what it took from her. She starts questioning herself. Was she too much? Too little? Did she love too deeply or not enough? The mind becomes a battlefield of what ifs and could have beens. Yet, deep down, she knows that this pain is not here to destroy her. It's here to awaken her. Every heartbreak, every silence, every lonely night is life's way of breaking her open, not to weaken her, but to make her meet herself again. The woman she had buried under compromise, under fear, under the need to be chosen. And so, in that quiet destruction, something sacred happens. She starts to see the beauty in her own fragility. She begins to realize that strength isn't about holding everything together. It's about having the courage to fall apart and still choose to rise. She learns that healing doesn't happen when the pain ends. It happens when she stops running from it, when she finally allows herself to feel, to break, to be human. Because that's the first step, not of moving on, but of coming home to herself. When the storm inside her finally settles, she begins to feel something different. Not peace, not yet, but a quiet strength forming in the ruins. The pain that once felt unbearable starts to transform, reshaping itself into purpose. She no longer looks at her scars as symbols of loss. She starts to see them as proof that she survived what was meant to break her. Every tear that once fell in despair now becomes a seed of wisdom. Every sleepless night becomes a lesson in endurance. Slowly, she begins to understand that pain isn't her enemy, it's her teacher. She starts making small choices that shift everything. She no longer asks, "Why did this happen to me?" But instead, "What is this trying to show me?" That single question changes the rhythm of her life. She stops running from her emotions and begins walking through them. The anger, the sadness, the longing, she lets them move through her instead of burying them. Because now she knows that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about transforming what once hurt into something that empowers. She begins to rebuild herself piece by piece. She reads, writes, prays, or simply sits in silence. Anything that brings her closer to herself. She starts to take care of her body, not because she wants to look better for anyone, but because she finally wants to feel alive again. The mirror that once reminded her of loss now becomes a place of renewal. She looks into her own eyes and sees resilience staring back. That's when the shift happens. She no longer defines herself by what she lost, but by what she's becoming. There's fire in her now, but it's a calm fire. The kind that doesn't destroy, but illuminates. She starts to speak differently, walk differently, think differently. She no longer needs to prove her worth. She embodies it. She realizes that her power was never gone. It was only sleeping beneath the ache. The pain became the key that unlocked it. Now she walks with quiet confidence, knowing that every wound carved depth into her soul. And when people look at her, they see strength, but only she knows that it was born from heartbreak. Because that's what real transformation looks like, not loud, not instant, but steady and sacred. She didn't just survive her pain, she turned it into her power. There comes a time when she stops fighting the silence and starts to make peace with it. The noise of the world fades, the constant distractions lose their meaning, and she finally sits alone, not out of choice at first, but out of necessity. At the beginning, solitude feels uncomfortable, even cruel. The quiet moments stretch endlessly, and she catches herself reaching for the phone, the music, the memories, anything to fill the emptiness. But slowly, she begins to realize that solitude isn't a punishment. It's an invitation. It's life's way of calling her back to herself. In the stillness, she starts hearing things she never noticed before. The sound of her own breath, the rhythm of her heartbeat, the whisper of her thoughts. She notices how often she's run from her own company, how long she's depended on others to make her feel seen. But in this sacred quiet, she begins to see that she is enough, that her presence alone carries value. There is no one left to impress, no mask to wear, no expectations to meet. It's just her, raw, real, and rediscovering. The loneliness that once felt heavy begins to feel holy. She starts enjoying her own rituals, a morning cup of tea, a walk at sunset, the comfort of her own laughter, echoing through an empty room. She learns to sit with her emotions, to listen without judgment. Some days the silence holds peace, and other days it holds pain. But she stops resisting both, because she knows that even in the discomfort, she's growing. In solitude, she learns the art of self-connection. She starts writing her thoughts, not to be read, but to be understood. By herself, she rediscovers forgotten dreams, reignites passions that were once buried under compromise. She starts nurturing her inner world, the way she once nurtured others. The same energy she used to give outward now turns inward, feeding her soul. And with time, she begins to love this stillness. She realizes that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being whole enough to stand on her own. It means she can be complete without constant validation. It means she can enjoy her own energy without needing anyone else to sustain it. In her solitude, she doesn't lose herself. She finally finds herself. She becomes her own safe place, her own home. And that discovery becomes the foundation for everything beautiful that will follow. With time, the woman who once felt fragile begins to stand differently. Her shoulders straighten, her eyes sharpen, and her energy shifts in ways that words can't fully explain. The softness in her heart is still there, but now it's wrapped in strength. She's learned that not everyone deserves access to her peace. The version of her that once gave freely, her time, her patience, her care, no longer exists. She has evolved. What once came easily to others must now be earned. She begins to move with purpose. Every choice she makes carries intention. She no longer says yes just to keep the peace. She now understands that peace kept at the expense of her own boundaries is not peace at all. It's self-betrayal. She's no longer impressed by promises, by words, or by appearances. She watches actions, energy, and consistency. The lessons she learned in loss have sharpened her perception. She sees truth quicker now. She recognizes red flags she once ignored. She no longer begs for loyalty, effort, or love. She simply observes who is capable of giving it. Her confidence grows, but it's not loud or boastful. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. It's in the way she carries herself, in the way she speaks less but says more. People notice the change, not because she's trying to prove anything, but because her energy commands respect without a word. She's no longer available for confusion, half effort, or emotional chaos. She protects her peace like it's sacred, because it is. She's learned that not every connection is meant to stay, and not every goodbye is a loss. Some doors must close for her to finally walk into her purpose. She no longer fears endings, because she's seen what new beginnings can create. Her circle gets smaller, but her peace grows larger. She gives herself permission to walk away from anything that disrupts her calm. No explanations, no guilt. And perhaps the most beautiful part of it all is that she no longer hides her standards. She wears them with grace. They are not walls, they are filters. For energy, for alignment, for truth. The woman she's becoming is both soft and unshakable, gentle but guarded. She understands her worth deeply now, and because of that, her presence is rare. Her silence has power. Her peace has value. And her strength, once born from pain, has now become her identity. As the seasons change and time begins to soften the sharp edges of her pain, she starts to look back differently. The memories that once haunted her no longer sting the same way. They still live in her mind, but not as wounds. Now they exist as chapters. Each one holds a lesson. Each one whispers a truth she was once too hurt to hear. She realizes that life never truly took anything from her. It only redirected her toward the version of herself she was always meant to become. There was a time when she replayed every moment, wondering what she could have done differently. But now, she understands that some stories are not meant to last forever. They are meant to teach, to shape, to awaken. She no longer views her past as a collection of mistakes, but as a series of initiations. Every disappointment built her discipline. Every heartbreak taught her discernment. Every ending prepared her for a new beginning. She starts to notice how much she's grown. The same situations that once broke her now fail to shake her. The same words that once hurt her now hold no weight. Her heart, though once fragile, has become wise. She forgives, not to forget, but to free herself. Forgiveness, she learns, isn't about letting someone else off the hook. It's about releasing her soul from the chains of resentment. She decides that her peace is worth more than the pain she keeps replaying. Slowly, her memories transform into mirrors. She looks into them and sees how far she's come. She no longer flinches at the thought of the past, because she understands that every scar on her heart is proof of her evolution. She's proud of the woman she's becoming, not in spite of her past, but because of it. The pain that once weakened her has now given her depth. The love that once blinded her has now given her vision. And so, she smiles, not because everything is perfect, but because she finally sees the purpose behind everything that once hurt. Her past no longer defines her. It refines her. It carved her soul into something stronger, softer, and wiser. The woman she is today is built from everything she thought she couldn't survive. And she wears that truth with quiet grace. When she finally reaches the other side of her healing, something beautiful begins to unfold within her. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, quietly, like sunrise after a long, dark night. She begins to feel love again, but this time it's different. It's not directed outward, and not towards someone else, but inward. She rediscovers love through herself. The kind of love that doesn't demand, doesn't chase, doesn't beg to be noticed. It's steady, gentle, and whole. It feels like coming home after being lost for too long. she starts to realize that the love she was always searching for was never meant to be found in another person. It was meant to be found in the way she speaks to herself, the way she treats her body, the way she protects her peace. She begins to celebrate her own company, to nurture her own dreams, to prioritize her own happiness. She becomes the source of her own warmth. And in doing so, she discovers that the greatest relationship she'll ever have is the one she builds with herself. She no longer waits for someone to make her feel chosen. She chooses herself every single day. She no longer hopes to be rescued. She becomes her own savior. The emptiness she once felt is replaced by fulfillment, not because someone filled it, but because she did. She pours love into her own life, into her passions, her purpose, her growth. Every action she takes becomes a form of self-respect. Every boundary a declaration of worth. When she looks in the mirror now, she doesn't just see a survivor. She sees a creator, a woman who rebuilt herself from nothing, a woman who learned to love the reflection staring back. Her joy no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. Her peace no longer shakes when others fail to understand her. She is whole, and that wholeness becomes magnetic. Without trying, she radiates confidence, softness, and strength. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all, she realizes she doesn't need love to complete her anymore. When love comes, it will add to her, not define her, because she finally knows that real love begins within. She becomes the embodiment of everything she once sought from others. She is not waiting for love. She has become it.